All right, well, welcome back to another Starter Spurts. This time we're focusing on Terry Stotts and the Blazers' search for a new head coach. As you all probably know by now, news broke last Friday of Terry Stotts being canned from the Blazers. I don't think that was a surprise to anybody, especially after the way that we got handled by none other than Monte Morris and Austin Rivers. Yes, those Denver Nuggets. This should have been done a long time ago, if we're being honest here. This team really hit its ceiling over the last 2, 3 seasons. It became very apparent that they hit their cap. They hit their cap with Terry Stotts, and Terry Stotts, I'll give him credit. He did a lot with this team after the Aldridge and Matthews and Batum and all the rest of those guys after that departure and rebuilding the team back up. He did fantastic. Our team really should have been terrible that year, but he got the most out of Ed Davis. He made Harkless and Aminu. They had career three-point shooting years with us. He really made them into good role players for us. And to that, I'll give Terry Stotts credit. He really made a few of those seasons really fun. Watching Damon CJ become one of the best dynamic backcourts in the league since 2016, 2015, 2016 now. It's been a joy to watch. It really has been a joy to watch. But at this point of Dame's career, he deserves a coach who's going to be able to take him from a mediocre playoff team to a team that actually has at least a shot to win a title. That's what he deserves, and that's what we need to look for in a different a different coach. But John, I just want to hear kind of what's your overall sentiment on Terry Stotts throughout his time, and kind of what are we looking forward to next?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good, a lot of bad. It was kind of a mixed bag with Terry. During the Aldridge era, especially, that's when you saw a lot of the good. A lot of creativity play-wise, especially out of bounds plays. Really got the most out of Aldridge, who really, I mean, after he left Portland, I mean, there was a couple years in San Antonio where he was still pretty good, but his best years definitely in Portland under Stotts. Just unfortunately kind of phased out by Damian Lillard. But and especially the beginning with Damian Lillard, I felt like you could throw anyone in Portland's rotation and they would hit 40% of their threes, regardless of how they were. And I mean, you look at Aminu and Harkless, and just 2 years after being on Portland, starting on a team that they may not started in the Western Conference Finals, but started on a team that made the Western Conference Finals. Both of them don't have roles in the NBA at all.
Right.
Aminu ended up hurt at the end of the year, but both of them were out of the NBA just 2 years after being starters. So obviously Terry has done a lot of good, but especially this year, and it's felt the past couple years, I mean, just the ball is very stagnant on offense. The defense, just the effort was very lacking. There were games where they just didn't feel like they really got up to play them, and a couple of those games were in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Both games 2 and 6, they really just didn't feel like they were in it, which is unfortunate. You hate to see it. So Terry unfortunately had to go. I think he knew he was coming. I know before the season they talked about he needed to improve his defense to keep his job, and they finished 29th in the league. And so I'm sure he knew going into the playoffs if they failed to reach second round, his job is likely done. Luckily for Terry, I know the Pacers are interested in him. I'd be surprised if he wasn't a head coach next year. I would assume he probably will be. He had a lot of success in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
He's Portland's second most winning coach of all time. Whether or not you believe a lot that has to do with Damon CJ more than Terry, whether you believe that or not, he is. And so he's done a lot of good for Portland, but I think for both sides, it was kind of a zooming towards the end this season.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like you kind of said, he had a 402 and 318 record overall with the Blazers. However, it's his playoff record where you really start to see the cracks forming, and he had a 22 and 39 record overall in the playoffs. And I get it. Most coaches outside of your best teams, you're gonna have playoff losses. Like you have to have 4 to get out of a series. So I mean, obviously you're gonna accrue up the losses over time, and the fact that he even has that many games in the playoffs shows his success.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, Terry Stotts is no more here in Portland, and I do think that we're better off for that. So looking ahead, there has been a coaching search that has been started by the Trailblazers chair, And so far, it appeared that it was 20 candidates, and it looks like that's being in the process of being whittled down to 7 to 8 candidates. And through that, there's going to be Zoom meetings that are going to be held, and then eventually there will be an in-person meeting, it sounds like, for the final interview to determine who will be the next head coach for the Portland Trailblazers. Some of the names that are being included, you all probably have heard by now if you're paying attention. Chauncey Billups, Mike D'Antoni.
Jason Kidd.
Yeah, Jason.
Well, until Jason Kidd decided he wanted no part of the job.
That is a whole different...
took his name out of the hat pretty quickly there.
That is a whole different conversation, but I think I was listening to the Locked On Trailblazers podcast with Mike Richmond, and he made a good point. Dame kind of screwed that one up a little bit.
Being so public, I mean, like, having no connection previously saying, go get this guy, I mean, it's kind of an awkward situation for a coach. Because, like, for Jason Kidd's credit, like, it's not like he had thought about the job before all of a sudden all the attention's on him, which is a crazy bad situation to be in.
Yeah, no, that's not a good situation to be in, and you don't see players talking like that about it.
Dave just probably got a little excited.
Yeah, he got a little excited. It also was too fresh off the playoff loss, and obviously Dame was really frustrated. I mean, listening to his exit interviews and post-game after Game 6, it was very obvious that Dame was frustrated, and I can't blame him. I mean, you've put together a really good roster. I felt Neil Lachey actually did a very good job with the roster over this last offseason, and for that to be the result, and now seeing what the Phoenix Suns are doing to Denver currently, I mean, you never know, that could change, but I don't see it happening. It's embarrassing. You got lit up by not Will Barton, not even Will Barton, Monte Morris. Yeah, that'd be better than the others. Monte Morris, Austin Rivers, Facu Campazzo, and even Marcus Howard to some degree. Like, that's just embarrassing. Like,
can't happen.
They're NBA players, but you are the more talented team, and you got to show it. So I think out of the candidates that we shown interest in, personally for me, I like the potential of Chauncey Billups. I don't know what he's going to bring as a coach. I like what he did as a player. I like just the culture that he's in and with the Clippers, even though I know the Clippers can underperform. But he's still with a top-tier organization there, and I think that does help with his future prognosis with coaching. I really like Mike D'Antoni. I know he might not be the best. Me and John have talked about this. He might not be the best overall fit for the team. Just as far as our strengths are already maybe there with him, and I'm not sure how much more he could bring out of us. That being said, he is a better coach than Terry Stotts, and he's really, a coach. Yeah, he got the best out of his players too in Houston. Eric Gordon had a career year. You had Robert Covington, who played really well while he was there. You've had guys like Ben McLemore, Trevor Ariza. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. They've just had so many guys come through.
Well, when you look at him, I mean, and Phoenix, he had a ton of success in Phoenix in the Steve Nash MVP seasons.
Yeah.
And then you look at Brooklyn too. And I know a lot gets discredited from them because of the superstars they have, but guys like Bruce Brown contribute every single night.
Yeah.
Nicholas Claxton, like, the role players on Mike D'Antoni's teams always contribute. So, like, he is obviously a hell of a coach. Is he a defensive-minded coach? No. Like, he is focused on offense. But he is still a hell of a coach. Yeah, I agree. I think Chauncey's probably the most intriguing one. It's the biggest name for sure, and just it would be his first head coaching job, and that appears to be the trend where young former players are becoming head coaches with more educated staffs behind them for that support in the transition of the role, which is what it appears Portland might be going to. But I mean, there could be a lot of guys in the discussion. I mean, Orlando's Steve Clifford could be in there. I know he's a very defensive-minded coach. The offense is lacking. But part of that could do with Orlando having a pretty bad offensive roster.
Yeah, they do.
And we do have Damian Lillard, which takes a lot away. I mean, we saw Portland ran pretty much one play all season, and we were one of league leaders in points.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. There are a lot of names that are out there. I know we've talked about. I forget who it's. One of Boston's assistants, as well. You might want to see. We could see who gets the axe on the second round departures if anything crazy happens.
Yep.
But you could look into Sam Cassell. I believe he's in Philly now with Doc Rivers.
Yeah, he is. He's assistant.
He's another defensive-minded assistant. I've heard Ime Udoka, who has ties to Portland.
What about Eric Spoelstra?
I mean, it would be
great.
That
that would be the ace. That would be the ace
and
card.
Pat Riley would have lost his rocker if we got Eric Spoelstra, but I mean, I don't see that happening. But I mean, maybe you look at someone like Danny Ainge if you could pull him into coaching again. He's had some success coaching. But I mean, there's a lot of names for Portland, but it's hard to tell just with how secretive Portland typically is with their moves. It's hard to imagine we're going to hear anything too hard and fast before they make their decision.
Yeah, and knowing how Portland works, if it's anything like it's been with free agency and trade deadlines over the last number of years since O'Shea's been in there, nothing ever happens the way that the media says it will.
Let's go, Steve Clifford!
So Steve Clifford,
Woo!
Here we come. Steve Clifford, we're calling it right now.
Oh,
Anyways, that's been another take with short spurts here with the Y Ball starters, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.